My name is Monique Corten. I'm a prosecutor in the Dutch Public Prosecution Service. I have an experience of many years in our service, and at the moment I'm head of the Department of International Affairs in the headquarters in The Hague. And in that department we are handling everything that's international except individual cases. Our main role is investigating and prosecuting criminal offences. In our democracy, the rule of law is very important. I have the honour to give you an introduction in our system and in a nutshell how we, as a prosecutor in the Netherlands, do our job. The first thing that we do is supervising the police in their investigation, and that means that we ensure that they follow the rules and the law. For example, that they make a very exact record of everything that happens in the investigation. We can bring a case before the court. If we decide that a case goes to court, then we make a summons, and in that summons we described very exactly what is the suspicion and what is the criminal offense. And the judge has to look at that description. He cannot make an own description in the end in his judgment. We can bring a case before the court, but we can also impose a sanction on our own. That's only for minor cases. And that can never be a sentence, a prison sentence. It's only a fine or a compensation order or things like that. The last thing, and that's an important one, is that we can dispose of a case. Normally a prosecutor does that if there is not enough evidence, but we can also do that if we think it's not opportune anymore to prosecute someone. So that can be in the case that someone has, a suspect has arranged everything with the victim. But it can also be in a case that we say it's not good to give priority to that case. And that's the principle of opportunity. And that's an important thing in our system. We have two other minor responsibilities. And the first is that if there is a case of a natural death, we have to give permission to dispose of the body. And the second responsibility is that we can give an order to place someone in a mental hospital. But that's of course only in cases that a person is not to be held responsible for the things he did. It's one organization. That's very important. In a lot of countries that's not the case. Really one organization with at the head a board of prosecutors general. And then we have 10 local offices. They are all attached, connected to a local court. We have 4 offices connected to the appeal courts for all the appeal cases to prepare them. And then we have 2 specialized offices. One, we call it the National Office. They do organized crime, cyber crime, terroristic offenses, that kind of cases. And then we have another specialized office, and they are occupied with environmental fraud. And they have a very complicated name, I'm going to in English. It's the National Office for Serious Fraud, Environmental Cases and Asset Confiscation. And then we have 2 other offices, and one is treating all the minor offences only digital, like traffic offences. And the other one is an organization for supporting all the other provider for the rest of the organization. The prosecution service, the PPS in the Netherlands, works very closely together with other organizations in the justice chain on national level, but also on local level. And on local level I can give 2 examples. The first one is the tripartite consultation between mayor, prosecutor and chief of police. That helps us to decide which cases we have to prioritize on the local level. For example, if someone steals a bike that is in Amsterdam is a very minor thing, but if you live in a very small village, that can be a case that you really have to investigate. Then we have the community safety partnerships, and we cooperate in that with a lot of other organizations. I'll give you an example. On local level, you very often have people who have problems with alcohol, or they are not taking their medication, and then they give difficulties in local society. And they commit very often minor offenses. So we follow that people, and with the organizations together, we are trying to find a solution. So for example, a housing organization is in it. If someone is homeless, then we can find a solution for him. A house, but he has to behave conform the plan we made together. And that's good for the person in question, but it's also very good for the local society. We created a network of centers for international assistance, and that's cooperation between the police and the prosecution service, and it's created to assure a quick response to the other country who is sending a request to us. A country can ask to do a house search in a certain case. They arrest someone is living in the Netherlands, and they say, we want to have you looking there for evidence in our case. So then the request is coming in that center. They give an order to the police to do the search, and the results are sending back to that country. International cooperation is very important. It has increased in the last 10-15 years enormously, not in the least because of the European Union that has created a lot of rules for international cooperation. And so we can work together with the European countries, but also with third countries, as we call them. And it's very important for us not only to find ways to cooperate on individual case basis, but also to have a relationship with our brother or sister organizations in other countries. We are all formed by our own background, and we look at our own system as the best in the world because that's what we know and where we grew up with. But if you are in another country and you are looking at another system without prejudice and with respect, then you'll see how it works, what is the real motor in that system. And it can be very, very important to realize that on one side for your international cooperation with that country, and on the other hand to learn and to see how it works there. And maybe you can do your advantage with that in your own system. Joining forces on the local level, we do believe in the local approach. As I explained, is the tripartite consultation between mayor, prosecutor and chief of the police in the heart of that. Is such a cooperation thinkable, or maybe it already exists in your country?